Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. We praise him subhanahu wa ta'ala, the King, the Master, the Sustainer, the Creator of the seven heavens and the earth. And we send peace and blessings upon his beloved Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. My brothers, we're living in a very difficult time. And the truth is many of us are losing our way. My brothers, when it comes to our deen is the most precious thing you have. And we're living in a time where many of us are feeling that our deen is open for interpretation. Whereas really, my brothers, the truth is that the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been made complete, and the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been perfected. The way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the deen to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is complete perfection. This is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants it, and this is how it will remain. And those that try to change it in any way, shape or form, they will be destroyed, they will fail. Our success in this life, our success in the grave, our success in the hereafter is only, and I highlight the words, only by following the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam according to how he showed it and how he taught it. My brothers, we live in a time where the world, where the word extremism is thrown around. That he's an extremist, that this is extreme, that this is too much. And we are becoming confused. What is extreme? How do I know if something has crossed the line or not? Is extremism according to what you and I think? Is it according to what the world tells us? Is it according to the local newspapers and what they think? Or maybe you think it's according to what our fathers and what our local mashayikh think. The truth is, my brothers, for you and I as a Muslim, being extremist or not, the measuring stick that we use is Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He is the balance, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He is the middle way. So don't be fooled by the world and what it tells you. If you want to know if you have become an extremist, then judge yourself according to him sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. For by Allah, anything more than what the Prophet did is extreme. And it will not be accepted by Allah, no matter how much it suits your whims and your desires, it will not be accepted. Some men, they came to the Prophet of Allah, and of course they're young, they're energetic, like most of us. They were on fire. So they came asking about the ibadah, the worship of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and they came to his wives. And this is a sahih hadith. So they asked, tell us about the Prophet of Allah. So they asked, tell us about his fasting. So his wife replied, radiallahu ta'ala anha, and she said, he would fast some days, and he would break his fast some days. So they asked, tell us about his night prayer. So she said he would sleep some of the night and pray some of the night. And sometimes he would pray all night. And so it was portions and portions. And then of course they asked about marriage. Did he marry? And obviously he did. So these three, almost as if, Allahu A'lam, not to say that they were not impressed, of course, but almost as if they said, well, you know what? He's the Prophet of Allah. He can do as he pleases. But for us, we need to prove ourselves to Allah. So one of them said, you know what? As of this day forward, I will fast every single day and I will never break my fast. The other one said, you know what? As of this day forward, I will never marry a woman. The other one said, I'm going to pray all the night and not sleep any part of it. Thinking that they were going to please Allah, impress Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thinking that they wanted to do more. So when the news reached the Prophet of Allah, it angered him. It angered him. It didn't impress him. He said, where are those who think, more or less, and I'm paraphrasing, where are those who think that they're going to worship Allah better than how I do? You will never love Allah more than the Prophet. You will never love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more than, you will never worship Him more than the Prophet. You will never understand deen more than what the Prophet of Allah did. So he called these men and he said to them very clearly, more or less, in our day and age, in our language, who do you think you are? He said, I sleep some of the night and I pray some of the night. I fast some days and I break my fast some days, and I marry. And anyone who leaves my sunnah, anyone who leaves my way, well then he's not from me. But you know what's also true, my brothers, is we all understand when we've done more than the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All of us agree that yes, anything more than Rasulullah is extreme. Well, I have news for you today. We always fail to mention the opposite side of the scale, because the truth is anything less than the Prophet is also extreme. But no one talks about that. That it's okay for me to be clean shaven. It's okay for me to not pray. It's okay, and everyone, I'm not a practicing Muslim. No, in truth, you're an extremist. Because he was the balance. He was the middle way. Anything more or less is extreme. You can't just sit there and point your fingers at these guys with their beards and say they are and they're not. No, because he sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if you choose to be a Muslim, and let me assure you, no one is forced to be a Muslim. Can we make this clear tonight? No one is forced to be a Muslim. Islam is a choice that you and I make. I choose to be a Muslim. When I wake up in deen, I choose to follow Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because I am convinced beyond all doubt that this is haqq, full haqq. It's the complete truth. So therefore I choose to follow Islam. None of you is forced. People come to, what's the Islamic perspective on this, and hang on. No one is forced to be a Muslim. No one. It's not my job to justify anything in my religion. Is it true you Muslims do this, and is it true you Muslims do that? I don't need to justify anything to anyone. That's not my job. He is the balance, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Anything more, but also anything less, is extremism if you choose to be a Muslim. And that's the problem, is that today we've allowed our deen to be what you and I think. That this is what I think Islam is, and this is what I think Islam is. And no, you know what? I think Islam should be more like this and should be more like that. Hang on. Hang on. The greatest prophet, accompanied with the greatest ummah, followed by the greatest 2 generations to come after them, followed by 1400 years of scholars who gave their lives for this deen. Now all of a sudden, all of this is pushed aside, and Islam has come down to what you and I think? Really? People come to me all the time, brother, what's your opinion on this? My opinion? Excuse the French, who the hell am I to have an opinion? 1400 years of ulama. Now, someone has a bit of a following on Facebook. Someone, mashallah, maybe he's gifted in speech. All of a sudden he feels that his opinion on the matter is important. Well, I have news for you. It doesn't matter what you think. Our religion has been perfected and completed. What matters to us is what the Prophet of Allah said and taught and did and approved. That's what matters to us. His opinion matters. And those Sahaba that followed him, because they understood deen the most, That's what's important to you and I. Today, my brothers, our deen has become thoughts, this, that and the other. And it's destroying us. It's destroying us. Have you heard this concept? You know, and you know, look, by Allah, I'm not attacking anyone, but there is some frustration because of what's happening around the world, and there is pressure, and I understand. There is pressure, and Muslims are faced with you know, to be honest, things that we don't know how to deal with. So what ends up happening is we end up selling our deen short. Muslims are falling all over themselves, trying to make their deen something that it isn't. Twisting and turning things, trying to make it more appealing, trying to make it more pleasing to non-Muslims. Well, I have news for you. That's not my job, and that's not your job. My job is not to make anyone love or accept Islam. My job is more purely to live my deen and present it in the best form possible. You accept, you like, it's none of my business. You cannot guide anyone. Allah guides. Allah guides, not you and I. Muslims all over coming up with things and theories on their deen, trying to make Islam so pink and rosy. Well, yes, I understand you mean well, but what you're not realizing is you're actually destroying things. You're making things worse, you're not making it better. Have you heard this? Muslims, even Muslims do this now. Islam means peace. Does anyone here disagree? This is what we've been taught, that Islam means peace. Where did you get that from? Who said that? Now forgive me, by no means am I saying that Islam is a hateful religion. No, Islam is definitely a peaceful religion. I agree. But Islam doesn't mean peace. People with any opportunity, oh, please, no one stress. Islam means peace. We are not. Hang on. Islam doesn't mean peace. Islam means submission. Don't sugarcoat things. Islam means submission. To who? To what? To Allah and His Prophet. And those that submit, they're called Muslims. And the more that they submit to Allah and His Prophet, these people will find peace in their lives. But Islam doesn't mean peace. So stop trying to make it something it's not. Islam means submission. But you find that we're falling all over ourselves, trying to make our religion something it's... Yes, I agree. Islam is most certainly a peaceful religion. We feel forced to condemn. Stand. Why do I have to condemn anything for? I'm not guilty. I didn't pick up a gun or a knife or harm anyone. Why do I have to condemn that for? Why am I being forced and bullied and intimidated in my own land, in my own country? Why am I being attacked? Why do I need to condemn it for? What did I do? A crime is a crime. You know, it's sad. This is basics. Sometimes I feel like Captain Obvious when I mention these things. Duh, a crime is a crime. And anyone who commits a crime, be a Muslim or not, then let the law deal with him. I don't need to condemn anything. But you find that we try to make our deen something it's not. Let's go back. You know, many of us, and again, wallahi, I'm not attacking. But we need to understand, my brothers and sisters, our deen is what? Our deen, again, it's not up to you and I. Our deen is how the Prophet of Allah and his companions, they are the model. How they understood deen is what you and I have to take. Today now, when it comes, I'll give you a classic example. When it comes to the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, of course, a mercy to mankind, the man who had sallallahu alayhi wasallam the greatest akhlaq and manners and adab, manners and ways and etiquettes and love and compassion. He is the absolute pinnacle. There is no greater than him sallallahu alayhi wasallam. But you find that even amongst Muslims, amongst ourselves, we tend to paint this image of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. It's not complete. That the Prophet of Allah was always smiling, he was always happy, he never got angry, he never cursed anyone. Yes, well, I agree, his overall character was love and compassion and smiling. But we make him out to be almost as if like, I don't want to say anything disrespectful towards him, but we paint this image that's not true. That he never got angry, that he never raised his voice. Sometimes I give a khutbah and I get a bit worked up, and maybe I start screaming or whatever the case is. I have 100 people who are ready to pull me up. Brother, why are you speaking like this? This is not Islam. The Prophet of Allah was never like this. He was always calm and beautiful and polite and smiling. He always spoke politely. Well, I agree that that was his overall character, but what's your proof for this? Why do you make the Prophet out to be something he entirely wasn't? The companions in Sahih narrations, they describe him sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and they used to say that we used to be in the masjid and he used to be giving the khutbah, the sermon. He used to raise his voice so loud, he could be heard in the marketplaces. What was he doing? Singing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star? But let's be honest, what was he doing? Why was his voice heard in the marketplace? They used to say his face would go red, veins would appear on his neck, his eyes used to go red. He would address us as if there was an army coming. Why do you deny this part of your Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? It's important. To follow him, you need to have the complete picture. Don't just pick and choose what makes you happy. And the opposite is true. Some people try to paint the Prophet like as if he had a sword in his hand day and night. No, he didn't. Give justice to his image. Yes, he was overly pleasant, overly smart, yes, this was his overall character. But he did get angry. He did get upset. He did curse. He did warn. He did raise his voice. Why do we deny that for? When it comes to Allah, we do the exact same thing. Even amongst Muslims. That Allah, that Islam is peaceful and loving and caring, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ghafoor Rahim, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most loving, the most caring, He's the one that forgives all sins. And it's true, I don't deny that. By no means am I taking the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala away from him, no. But we stress on his mercy so much so that we forget that he's severe in punishment. And this is what I want to highlight here tonight. Don't make the deen out to be something it's not. Paint the full picture. Because what's happening now is most of us, myself included, we have this image of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there's certain verses of Quran and authentic hadith we love spreading. And I know you mean well, but what you don't realize is if you don't balance it, you can do more harm than good. I'll give you an example. Quran. So no one can argue. No one can argue. It's Quran, authentic. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran what? وَرَحْمَتِي وَسِعَتْ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ. And my mercy encompasses all things. And we love the verse. We thrive on it. But have you noticed that's all we say? What did he say before? What did he say after? Is irrelevant. وَرَحْمَتِي وَسِعَتْ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ. Brother, stop being harsh. Stop being extreme. What are you doing? No. Brother, and then the other hadith من قال لا إله إلا الله ودخل الجنة. MashaAllah. So everyone pack your bags and let's all go home and sing Kumbaya together. Sahih Hadith, can you argue? Come on, dalil, can you? قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من قال لا إله إلا الله دخل الجنة. Wow. And this is my topic tonight. That my brothers, unfortunately, and forgive me, I don't know what you want to call me. Raw, a realist, I don't know. But for me, I feel that this is how I benefit and this is how I move forward. So therefore, I'm sharing it with you like I like it to be shared with me. Whatever you like, take, and whatever you don't like, please drop it and leave it. But when we talk about our deen, it's always hopeful and Allah's mercy encompasses all things and don't worry about it. Man qala la ilaha illallah is going to enter Jannah, and that you know what, at the end of the day, nothing's going to happen. Well, that's far from the truth. Because this same Allah that says in the Quran, wa rahmati wasi'at kulla shay, He also says in the Quran, feed me. Allah says, and I warn you against myself. No one wants to talk about that. No one has an interpretation for that. Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara. Oh, you who believe, save yourselves and your families from the hellfire. Forgive me, my brothers, but this is what I feel. Most of us feel and think that, you know what, that this is a big joke. That your life and your existence in this world is some big joke. And that on the day of judgment, Allah's just going to say to everyone, did you all get scared? Well, don't worry about it. It was all fun and games. All of you now go run and play. Hasha lillah. My brothers, your life is real. Allah is not playing games. Your existence in this world is not by chance. But for you and I, now, you know what, that I'm alive because 30 odd years ago, mum and dad got together and there you go, I'm here now. No, you exist because Allah created you and He created you for a reason. And Allah's watching you. And everything you do is recorded with Allah. Some people think, yeah, you know what, there's 1.7 billion Muslims, so really what I do doesn't benefit and doesn't harm. No, you're wrong, it does. Allah is watching your every move. When you call Allah, Allah is there. Allah watches and listens to every one of you. Simultaneously, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't get lost. Don't think that, you know what, that because there's a lot of people, it's not going to really matter whether I do or I don't. No, it does. Allah's watching you. We've taken our deen too lightly. And that's a concern. Because my brothers and sisters, while some of you may think that, you know what, this guy's really pushing it down the wrong road, fine, don't believe me, but look at your Prophet and his companions sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I look around and I see no one is worried anymore. No one is stressed. Everyone is in cruise control. Yeah, I don't pray. Yeah, I don't read Quran. Yeah, I don't do this. But it's okay. Where did you get that from? Oh, you obviously didn't hear. Allah said in the Quran, وَرَحْمَتِي وَسِعَتْ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ. Brother, yeah, maybe I'm not the best, but the Prophet of Allah said in the Sahih Hadith, مَنْ قَالَ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ دَخَلَ الْجَنَّةِ. And I think, wow, subhanallah. You understood deen better than the Prophet and his companions? No, astaghfirullah, brother, I didn't say that. Then what are you saying? Why is it that the Prophet and the companions were worried and you and I were not worried? No one is stressed anymore. Have you noticed? Yeah, I do what I can. If I get the chance, if I get around to it. Whatever Allah allows me to do. Wow. They were worried and stressed, and you and I were not worried and stressed. Your Prophet who was promised, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was promised paradise. Al-Maqam al-Mahmud was for him. The highest possible status. The highest possible position was for him sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And even he used to say, I used to repent to Allah. I used to make istighfar 100 times a day. Worried, fear. He would stand, he would stand the night praying, worried and concerned. When Allah orders him, in Surah Hud and those chapters that are like it, the Prophet of Allah, he says, this surah gave me grey hairs, stress and concern. The Prophet of Allah, what are you worried about? You're free from sin, you're going to paradise. It's okay, relax. What are you worried about? He was worried, and you and I, we're not worried. No one cares. My brothers, your deen is serious. Your life is serious. It's not a joke. Don't be fooled. Don't be fooled. Companions were worried, and you and I were not worried. Look at our lives. Everywhere I go, it's the same song. Every country I visit, wallahi, it's the same thing wherever I go. Brother, how's your relationship with Allah? Alhamdulillah. It's not the best. Why isn't it the best, Ya Akhil Kareem? I'm busy. What are you busy with? What are you busy with? How's your Quran? Not the best. Can you read Arabic? No, wallah, I'm not an Arab. Nothing. We fail in everything. And what's worse, that's half the problem. You know what's worse than this? Is every one of us, if we're honest here tonight, every one of us is convinced beyond all doubt that I'm definitely going to Jannah. But what proof do you have? What proof do you have that you're going to paradise? And by all means, by no means am I sending anyone to hellfire. Please don't misunderstand the message. But everyone's convinced, yeah, I'm going to paradise. Why? Because, hey, I said La ilaha illallah and the Prophet of Allah, you heard the hadith. That why is it that the Prophets were concerned and you and I are not concerned? Sahaba were worried and they were promised paradise. You know what's funny? Is they were promised Jannah. And they were still worried and stressed. You and I have been promised nothing. Nothing. And we're living life in cruise control. Whatever, man. If I get the chance, inshallah, I'll come. Who's misunderstood? Me or them? Me or them? Death is not a joke. Judgment Day is not a joke. Hellfire is not a joke. Allah's wrath and punishment is not a joke. And they believed it. They understood that. And that's why they were successful, because when you look at their lives, they were always worried, always pushing themselves forward, always concerned. Did Allah accept? Have I done enough? You and I, we do very little. Yes. You give a couple of dollars, a couple of pounds, or whatever your currency is, you give some money on the way out, you feel like Allah owes you favors. I'm not boasting, brother, but you know that masjid down the road, when they were building it, I gave $10,000. You know, my brothers, let me share some stories, of your fathers. Your fathers. I'm not going to tell you about the ulama and the mashaykh. Maybe you and I can argue about them. But your fathers, the companions. Mu'adh ibn Jabal, radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Mu'adh was one of those, the best of companions, radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Mu'adh was just a special companion. But look how they understood deen, and look how you and I understand deen. Just to give you an idea of who Mu'adh is. Mu'adh was one of those companions whom the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam in the Sahih Hadith. Imagine, try to live the Hadith. Don't just listen to it. Try to live it and absorb it and understand the weight of who this man is. Mu'adh ibn Jabal was one of those companions whom the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he single-handedly picked out. He says to him, Ya Mu'adh, by Allah, I love you. Ya Mu'adh, I love you. By Allah, I love you. By Allah, Ya Mu'adh, I love you. Imagine having this testification. Yet this same Mu'adh, many years later, when he reaches old age, on his deathbed, listen to what he says. He says, Oh Allah, old age, death is knocking on his door. He says, Ya Allah, I lived my whole life in fear of you. People today try to impress me. Is your relationship with Allah a relationship of fear? Astaghfirullah. My relationship is a relationship of love. You people have no understanding. But you know what? I have no understanding. But Mu'adh, these are his words. He says, Oh Allah, I lived my whole life in fear of you. Ya Allah, now I'm old. I'm brittle. I'm weak. Death is knocking on my door, Ya Allah. Even if I wanted to do anything, Ya Allah, I can't do anything as of this moment onwards. Ya Allah, now in this position, Ya Allah, I'm hanging and I'm clinging onto your mercy, Ya Allah. Have rahmah on me. You and I were young, we're fit, we're capable. I can go and I can come. And you're clinging on to Allah's rahmah with no fear whatsoever. And you're trying to convince me that you and I understand deen more than what they did. Why were they worried and you and I are not worried? Umar ibn al-Khattab, who's my personal favorite. Umar ibn al-Khattab promised paradise many times. Imagine, the Prophet of Allah promises you paradise. Many times. The man whom the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he says to Umar, if there was to be a prophet after me, it was going to be you. The man whom the Prophet of Allah used to say what? He says to Muhammad, when you take a path, now that shaitan takes another path. Yet this was a man who, when he was walking in the streets and he heard a man reciting verses of Quran that spoke about the punishment of Allah, he became ill and bedridden for 20 days. Companions were visiting him at home for 20 days, worried and concerned. You and I are not worried that, hey, everything, relax. Man qala la ilaha illallah dakhala al-jannah. Wow! Umar didn't know this hadith. When Umar ibn al-Khattab, imagine, wallahi, by no means, please let me clarify, because I'm not one to, use these emotional stories to make you cry. I couldn't care less about those things. Right? But try to imagine and absorb this man, who we know in his reign, in his khilafah, was the golden years of our deen. The golden years of Islam were during the rule of Umar ibn al-Khattab. Amir al-Mu'mineen, leading the prayer in Masjid al-Nabawi. I mean, how much more status could you possibly want? Leading salah in the masjid, he gets stabbed while he's in the prayer. He falls to the floor. The companions come to his aid. And after they realize, khalas, the man is dying, the man is leaving us. His son Abdullah is with him. And Umar ibn al-Khattab has his head on his son's thigh. And death is moments away. So Umar ibn al-Khattab, he says to his son Abdullah, he says, oh my son, take my head off your thigh, take my head off your lap and put it on the floor. He says, my father, why? He says, my son, because I'm hoping. He says, I'm hoping and I'm praying that if Allah sees me in this humiliated state, that maybe, just maybe, He may have rahmah and mercy on me. And you and I are walking around and say, yeah brother, what's wrong? Relax. I'm going to paradise for sure. I mean really, if I'm not going to Jannah, then I don't know who is. They were worried and concerned, and you and I, yeah, everything's fine and dandy. Can you see this deception that's happening to us? My brothers, you need to be worried and concerned. Allah is not playing games. Your life is real. I mean, Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala, I mean, really, you know, he was worried. He was stressed. And you and I are not worried and are not stressed. And he was the best. And he was the best. What's happening? What is happening? My brothers, the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he describes the day of resurrection, look at the picture that he paints. Doesn't sound like someone that's playing games. He says, on that day the sun will be a mile above your head. 1 mile above your head. Doesn't sound like a pretty day. He says, on that day you will be naked, barefooted, uncircumcised. Does this sound like a Lord that's playing games? Naked, barefooted, uncircumcised. You know, my brothers, I said this hadith one time in a masjid. So one of the brothers, after he came to me, he said to me, Akhi al-Kareem, ma'lash, you know, forgive me, but why did you have to mention the fact that you're uncircumcised? I have a 12-year-old daughter upstairs. I don't think this sort of language is appropriate. So I drove home and I was really feeling bad. I thought, you know what, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe that was a little bit inappropriate. But then I'm driving home and I thought, hang on. If the master of manners had no problems in mentioning the narration, then who am I to be embarrassed? Who am I to think that this is rude and that this is inappropriate? Your Habib is saying that day you'll be naked, barefooted and uncircumcised. You know, this hadith drives me crazy. You know why? I think to myself and I say, you know what, really? Isn't it enough for the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to simply say that you'll be naked? True? Yani, isn't that enough? Doesn't it paint the picture? Like if I told you, brother, you'll be naked on that day, that's enough. Why do you need to tell me I'm barefooted? And why do you most certainly need to add the fact that I'll be uncircumcised? Yani, what does that add to the fact? Like, we already know we're going to be naked. You know why? You know why? These are my personal thoughts. Because the Prophet of Allah is telling you, even that piece of foreskin that left you so many years ago, even that Allah will return to your body, because not an inch of you will escape Allah on that day. And you and I think that it's a big joke. It's a big joke. No one is stressed anymore. No one is working hard. The Prophet of Allah, when he mentioned this hadith sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she became worried. She says, the Prophet of Allah, is that what you're telling me? What do you think he said? He says, well, yes Aisha, yes, that is exactly how it will be. But look at the comfort that he gave her. He said, but Aisha, don't worry. For the severity of that day, the hardship of that day, no one will have the time to be looking at anyone. And you and I think it's a big game. That it doesn't, yeah, I can afford to go to Hajj, but I'm not gonna go to Hajj. And it's okay, it's not a big deal. Relax. No, it is a big deal. What are you living your life for? My brother, aren't you worried? Aren't you concerned? Look at the day of resurrection. Prophets will be scared. Prophets will be worried. They're afraid, and you and I, we're not afraid. You know, my brothers, let me share something very personal with you, yeah? Let me share something very personal. When my wife was pregnant with my first, everyone told me, oh, when your wife gives birth, it's the most amazing thing in the world. One guy said to me, brother, I fainted when my wife gave birth. The other one said to me, I swear, I could promise you, I've seen angels come down. And movies, Aflam Hindi و Turkey بقى and Disney. And so my wife, she's pregnant. And wallahi, forgive me, my wife is watching, please forgive me. I can't lie, I'm in the masjid. You know, so I went, and she's going to give birth, and everyone's telling me it's the most amazing thing in the world. So I was there for 18 hours. 18 hours. I was seeing stars. So when she finally gave birth, they wrapped up the baby and they held her and they said to me, Mr. Hoblos, look at your beautiful girl. So I was exhausted. So I held her, I said, MashaAllah, that's amazing, that's beautiful. Do you want anything? I'll see you in the morning. For me personally, there was nothing special about it. I mean, that's me. I'm not having a go at anyone. That's just me. So people said to me, no, you know what? Because we're Arabs, and unfortunately this sickness is there. No, brother, it's because it's a girl. But trust me, if your wife gives birth to a boy, it's a different story, bro. Alright, so she gets pregnant, and then my next child, alhamdulillah, was a boy. So there I was, waiting. I'm waiting for the angels, and I'm waiting for the light, and I'm waiting for these miracles to come down. Please, brother, whoever's recording with their phones, please put your phones down. Please, no one to record. Yeah. Wallahi, I feel like I've only made the announcement like 10 times. Please, no one record with their phones. So anyway, so I thought, alright, he's a boy. I'm going to see stars and fireworks. And the boy came out, Mr. Hoblos. I looked at the kid. I said, well, thank you very much. I'll see you. Anyway, so this is so there wasn't this attachment that everyone can. But then as days unfolded, kids started growing, attachment started happening. Wow. I really started falling in love with my kids. And for the first 2 years, I felt nothing for my son. I don't mean nothing, but I didn't have, like how the Arabs insist on having a boy. I didn't really feel that. My daughter just was my world, But then as my son started growing, now he's coming with me, he's holding my hand, he's calling me Baba, he's talking to me. Wow, my heart started changing. And I really started to feel this unbelievable bond. So anyway, my son reaches an age, I think he was maybe about 3.5. He's a beautiful young boy. He reaches an age where I noticed that his eye every now and then would turn in. So obviously I was concerned. I took him straight to the doctor. I said to him, listen, I'll make it very clear. He's my son. He means the world to me. Don't waste my time. Send me to the best in the country. The best. Don't waste my time. Don't waste my time. Send me to the best in the country. And by Allah, I am not joking. Wallahi, if it was going to cost me $1 million, and I'm not joking, Wallah al-Azim, if it was going to cost me $1 million to fix his eye, I was ready and prepared to pay it. By Allah, I'm not exaggerating, and I'm not trying to impress anyone in the room, but that's my son. He means the world to me. So when I took him to the specialist and she sat him down, she did whatever tests she had to do. Mr. Hoblos, look, I have to run some tests. I said to her, please, whatever you have to do. So basically she sat us in this room and she put these eye drops in his eye. And let me just explain to you what I had to go through. I can promise you that there's a point to the story. So there was my son, 3.5 years old, and he's a shy kid. So he's seeing doctors and and other people and instruments. So obviously he was very nervous. So she said to me, look, we have to run some tests. And basically this is how the tests went. She sat my son down on a chair, and she sat me on a chair opposite to my son. Now above my head was a computer screen, and above his head was a mirror. So I could see what he was looking at. I hope that makes sense, yes? So she said to me, look, we have to test his vision. I said to her, fine. So naturally as a father, I'm trying to encourage my son, and I'm trying to make him not stress. My son's name is Omar al-Farouk. I said to him, Omar, be strong. Okay, Baba, don't worry, Habibi. You're going to sit down. Whatever you can see, Amura, you tell her exactly what you can see and don't stress. I'm trying to encourage him. I mean, he's my son. I'm trying to encourage him. Don't worry. So he sat down on the chair and he was worried. I mean, he was scared. He was freaking out, naturally. So she started putting, it was numbers and letters and colors. So when she first put them on, they were nice and big. She asked him, what do you see? He said, A. And it was an A. I said to him, Amura, good on you, Baba. So happy and so proud. This is my son. I said to him, good on you, Amura. And he smiled, and it was that smile from the heart. He felt like, he's making me proud. As far as he's concerned, he's making me proud. So there he was, A, D, red, ball, 1, 4. Ripping him out. But then they got smaller. Then he wasn't answering as fast. And I could see it and I could feel it. And then he started looking at me, and he wasn't looking at the screen anymore. And she was asking, Omar, what can you see? I said to him, Amura, tell her, Baba. But he's looking at me, and because I know he can't see it anymore. He couldn't work out what it was, and he's looking at me, and his eyes started tearing up. And he said to me, Baba, are you upset with me? I was like, Amura, why would you think I'm upset, Baba? No, I love you, Habibi. No. He said, and he's looking at me, he said to me, Baba, are you upset? I said to him, Baba, no, I'm not. Wallahi, I'm not upset. I said, Amura, I'm proud of you. And he's looking, and I could see that he couldn't work it out. And I could read it, and wallahi, every part of me wanted to give him the answer. But I knew that if I gave him the answer, I was only going to cheat him. That's all I'm doing. So he's looking at it, and he's looking at me, and the tears start rolling down his face. And he said to me, Baba, are you upset? And I was like, man, why do you think that? And I thought, wow, Allah tested me, just a little test, and I'm a sinner. I'm not being humble. I don't sit in front of you like I'm better than anyone. I know my sins, I know my shortcomings, but me, this corrupted sinner, when my son was in that position, oh, the life of me, I couldn't hold myself. Wallahi, if he asked for my heart, I would have ripped it out and gave it to him. Yet the Prophet of Allah says on the day of judgment, when all of humanity will run to their father Adam, who's a prophet, who's free from sin, he knows every single one of you is definitely from his lineage. Definitely from his lineage. When all of humanity goes to Adam and they beg their father, oh Adam, help us, can't you see the state that we're in? The Prophet of Allah says what? He says, your father who's a prophet will say, get away from me, nafsi, nafsi. Allah has never been this angry before, and He will never be this angry again. I have my own problems to worry about. And you and I think the day of judgment, it's just a big joke for you and I. It's a big game. As far as we're concerned, that everything's relax. They were worried. They were stressed. And you and I have to relax. They were the best of people and worried. So no one gets offended. I'm the worst and I gotta be relaxed. Allah is not playing games. My brother, your life is real. Jahannam is real. So what do you have to say about this? Man qala la ilaha illallah dakhala al-jannah, bro. Sahih hadith. You're sitting here trying to scare the people. How do you justify this hadith? I remember when the boys used to go out and do haram. It's amazing. This is why Islam was supposed to be a balance. Banu Israel, the Jews said what? The Jews said, hey, we're the chosen nation. Quran, we're the chosen nation. If Allah was to punish us, how will He will throw us into the hellfire for what? Days, counted days. If Allah was to punish us, counted days. They went one extreme. The Christians went the other way. What did the Christians say? The Christians said, relax. Do whatever you want. So long as you believe in Christ and that He died for your sins, doesn't matter what you do. Come at the end of the day, crack open a beer and call it a day. We've become worse than the both. Muslims do whatever they want, when they want, how they want. And then he justifies it at the end by telling me, Man qala la ilaha illallah dakhala al-jannah wa rahmati wasi'at kulla shay'. So let's answer this. And this is the problem. When you don't understand your deen in complete, the full picture. Today Muslims, they look at their religion through a keyhole. Through a keyhole. You know what the danger is by looking at a keyhole? Even if the hadith is sahih. Look at what the danger is. The analogy of anyone who looks at a sahih hadith through a keyhole, for me is the same thing as a person who looks through a keyhole, sees a young boy laying down, and a man with a knife, and there's blood on the knife. So he interprets that and says, hey, the man is killing the boy. So he smashes down the door and runs right in to grab the man. Only when he smashes the door down and things get bigger and he sees everything for what it really is, he realizes, whoa, that kid was a patient that needed surgery. And that man that had a knife was a doctor. And that knife was an instrument for the surgery. He wasn't killing the boy. He was actually saving his life. Same incident. But look at the difference when you look through a keyhole and you look at the full picture. So let me explain the hadith to you. We have a brother. I'm going to ask you now. We have a brother. Here he is. His name is Viomas. And brother Viomas here, he says, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. And he believes it with full faith and full yaqeen. But our brother Viomas here doesn't believe in the Quran. Will he enter Jannah? What are you doubtful, yani? Or Brother's ready. I'm telling you, the brother says, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Man qala la ilaha illallah dakhala al-jannah. Our beautiful brother Viyomasi says La ilaha illallah, but he denies the existence of the Quran. Will he enter paradise? Answer me. Why are you being extreme for, man? But why are you being extreme? Did he not fulfill the condition of the hadith? That he believes in the Quran but doesn't believe in the angels. Some of you already look at brother. No. What the Prophet meant, exactly. What the Prophet meant when he said this is that there's a long criteria that obviously needs to be met. Then on top of that, those who die with conviction of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasul, they will definitely enter Jannah. But there's a criteria. Like, fine, you got us, man. Damn. But what about the ayah in Quran? Come on, smarty pants. Every time one of you grows a beard, grows a gut, wears a nice abaya, he thinks he's a sheikh. Come on, tell me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَرَحْمَتِي وَسِعَتْ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ, that my mercy encompasses all things. I say yes. For years I used to hear this ayah like that. Nothing before, nothing after. Surah Al-A'raf. Homework, please homework. Allahu Alam, verse 156. Please homework. Halfway through the ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَرَحْمَتِي وَسِعَتْ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ. I'm not going to tell you what Allah says in the next chapter. I'm not going to tell you what Allah says in the next verse. The very next word after وَرَحْمَتِي وَسِعَتْ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ, Allah says فَسَأَكْتُبُهَا. But it's restricted. It belongs to a particular group of people. Wow, doesn't that change everything now? Yes, Allah's mercy encompasses all things, but Allah says فَسَأَكْتُبُهَا. But this rahmah, this mercy that encompasses all things, it will be given to these people. Who? The first criteria of these people. The first criteria of these people Allah mentions. What do they have? They have fear of Allah, taqwa. Fear of Allah. This is to whom my mercy belongs to. And those who follow the Prophet, and it goes on. Wow, I didn't see that before. So let's wrap this up because I don't want to stress anyone out, and let's not go too long with this. I've taken much of your time. Am I taking away the rahmah of Allah? No. Is Allah the most forgiving? Yes. Does Allah forgive all sins? Yes. Did Allah allow the woman that was a prostitute, but because she gave an animal some water, did Allah enter her into paradise? Yes. I am not by any means taking away the mercy of Allah by any means. What I'm saying is balance things. Balance things. Those that work and strive and try to get closer to Allah, these are the people whom this endless bounty, this endless rahmah, this is who it belongs to. This talk tonight was by no means was it to scare you. By no means was it to make you lose hope. Wallahi, if anything, it was to wake you up and tell you that yes, Jannah is there. Jannah is waiting. But it belongs to those who strive and work. Allah will forgive your sins, but not while you're sitting on your couch in cruise control. What does Allah say? Hadith al-Qudsi, Sahih Hadith. He says, my slave, when you come to me a handspan, I come to you an arm's length. My slave, when you come to me walking, I come to you running. My slave, when you remember me, I remember you. You understand the relationship? You have to make a move. Allah will definitely forgive your sins when you make a move. When you come closer to Him. My brother, don't waste your life. Hashtag, don't play Russian roulette with your life. You only have one. You only have one. There's no second chance. What worried the Sahaba should worry you and I. What stressed them should stress you and I. Stop thinking that everything is okay, because it's not. Don't waste your life. Is this clear? Honestly, is there any doubt? Is there anyone here that feels he may have misunderstood my message? Wallahi, my brothers, Allah is the most compassionate. Yes, yes. But you need to earn it. You need to strive. Stop wasting your life. Move, ya akhi, move, my sister, move. This ummah is in need of you. I need you. The Muslims around, we all need you. Stop wasting your life. Stop being just another face in the crowd. It's amazing. We give Allah our scraps. We give Allah our scraps. We give Allah what we don't need. And we expect Allah to give us the greatest reward of them all. When we come to give charity, how do we give our charity? Let's be honest. Someone asks me for money, natural. It's a thought process. We start calculating. Okay, I need to pay my rent, I need to pay for the car, I need to pay for food, I need to... So you calculate everything that you need. You take that money out, you put it aside. Then you look at what you don't need anymore. Then from that you say to yourself, well, okay, now from what I don't need, how much of this will I give Allah? And for that you expect Firdaus al-A'la. Brother, come to the masjid. Wallahi, I'm very busy. I'll see. If I get some time today, I might come. Is this how you deal with Allah? Scraps! Scrap. Whatever I don't need anymore. Honestly, look, whenever they ask for clothing, what clothes do you give? Let's be real. And look, I'm not attacking. By all means, it's a good thing to, yes. But just be real. When you give your clothes, which clothes do you give? You give the clothes you bought last week? What do you give in charity? What I don't need anymore. Fi sabilillah. You give Allah your rubbish. I don't need this money, so therefore I'll give it in charity. We give Allah rubbish and we expect the ultimate reward in return. Why don't you learn Arabic? Well, I'm busy. What are you busy with? So anyway, we need to start moving forward in a positive light. Stop wasting your time. Start moving. Start sacrificing. Start making an effort with Allah so that you may be successful.